Hey, this is Mrs. D, and we are doing basic app design. This is a part one for a two-part. We're going to put the design in today, and then we're going to go on next time and we're going to link our code to the design that we make today. The other thing that you can always do in code.org is you can access the data tab at the top. There's a ton of data, a bunch of different tables, and inside you can preview and you can use the data that's available inside your app. We are not doing that right now. We'll talk about that later on in another video. Today we're talking about basic app design. So we're going to start just with the screen one. So we're going to have one screen for today. We can always add another screen later. And we would do that by adding new screen. If you have a screen, right, I just added screen 2. If you have a screen and you don't want the screen, you can always just delete it. But it's not stored anywhere. So once you delete it, it's gone forever. So this is screen 1. And if I were to send it to a user right now, it would be a white screen. It would also have the name screen 1, which is a terrible, terrible idea. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change this to a meaningful name. So instead of screen 1, we're going to call it start page. And then I'm going to choose a color. You can also choose an image. When you choose an image, you can upload something from your files. You can link to an image online, or you can choose one of the icons that's built into code.org site. When you do link to an image online, you want to make sure that you copy the link of the image. So copy image link would be a right click for you. And then not all images will work because code.org is very careful about what kinds of images they allow back into their system. I'm choosing a color today, so let's go for a nice light green. And so my start page is now light green. I could hit run right now, but nothing would happen. There are other things that we can add. One of the things I really like to always add is a button at the bottom. This could be your next button or your submit button. And the ID right here is what we use in the code. So that has to be the meaningful part. The text is what the user would see. So that has to be meaningful to the user in a very simple kind of way. So I'm going to say next. Another good option would be submit. And we're going to call this, just because, you know, if you end up with 6 or 7 screens on your app, you want to make sure you know which next button you're referring to. So I'm going to call this start page next. And when we name things, variables and objects on the screen, we want to start with a lowercase letter. We can't start with a wacky symbol. We can't start with a number. We start with a lowercase letter. And then we want to be able to pick out the next words really quickly. So what we do is we do what's called camel case. So every next word is capitalized so we can pick that out. And as long as you're meticulous about doing this, now everyone always makes mistakes and they have to go back and edit it, but as long as you're meticulous about doing this, the coding actually goes faster because you know what it's supposed to be, so you just get used to doing it after a while. All right, so this is my start page next button, and I'm going to want it to do something. It starts off with this wonderful kind of orange color that comes from the default theme right here. So you can jump down. There's a ton of themes that you can use. But what we're going to do today is we're going to stick with default because this is basic app design. And I'm just going to change the color. So you can change the color of both the text and the background. So I'm going to go for like a kind of darkish green so it pops out. And there we go. There's my next button. And then again, I named it something for my code, and then I named it something for the user. The only other thing I wanted to show you is there's border radius here at the bottom, and border radius changes the look by kind of curving it out. So you could have a really nice kind of round next button if you want. You can play with all this later. So the next part is we have to talk about input and output. When we're designing an app, we want to get input from the user and we want to give them some kind of output based on the information that they give us. So basic kinds of input are buttons, which the user would click and something would happen. We could have text input where they could do something like type their name. We could have a drop down where they could choose their state if they're having something shipped to them. We can have check boxes to change little variables, and we can have radio buttons to turn things on and off. And there are also sliders. So the easiest ones to use are button, text input, and drop down. And so that's what we're going to start with today. So we're going to have a text input for their name and a drop down for their age. And then we're going to have a little image in the corner, and we're going to have a text area. So What we could do is we could have them choose their favorite season in the drop down, and then we could have that picture show up here. That would be a kind of output, but I don't want to get that complicated on our first app, so I'm just going to choose an icon to kind of draw the eye in. Let me see, what can I find? All right, let's do, we'll do a lightning bolt this time. All right, so the user is going to put input in up here. We have a lightning bolt, and then something's going to come out in this text area. I like to use labels, but you don't have to use labels. For the input, we could just have a placeholder like, please type your name. And then that shows up in the gray. As soon as you click into this, that disappears. They don't have to delete it or anything. That's placeholder text. But I really like to always have a label. So I'm going to drag a label up, and I'm going to drag a label for my drop-down menu. So I've got two labels. It's actually, because I've been playing with this for a while, it's actually calling it label 4. What's this one called? Also label 4. No, that's not correct. Oh, label 3 and label 4. Okay, so those are not at all meaningful. So I'm going to call label 3, I'm going to call that name label. And label 4 is going to become age label. That way I'll be able to select it during my coding. And then we're going to call this, instead of text input 3, name input. And this is going to be choose your age. Okay, so now when the user comes in, they're going to know that they need to type their name, but it doesn't say it yet, right? So I want the text to say the same thing. And we want the next one to say choose your age. And then in the computer, when we code it, we're going to call it age label. And this one we're going to call name label. We probably won't do anything with them, but it's there. This is called name input, and this is called choose age. And so the last thing is to put in the option. So with a drop down, the big important thing is to have each option on its own line. So then we could say 5 years or under, should not be using a computer. 5 to 12 years. 12 to 18 years. Now there's a problem with what I'm doing, right? Because I'm putting the numbers twice. So people are going to have to kind of choose if they're on the line, but I'm not too worried about that for an introductory app. So 18 to 24 years. And then we'll just go with old. All right. So now they're going to choose from that, and then they're going to click the next button, and then eventually it'll show up right here. So let's just click run really quick to see what we see here. So I can type in a name, and I can choose an age. It's not doing anything because we haven't coded anything, but we do have some elements, and then we have this text output. The last thing I would like to say, well, okay, so first let's notice that we can only edit it when we reset. Once we run it, we can't edit stuff over here. Last thing I'd like to say about the text box is that it's on a phone, and we don't want the user to be able to type in there because we want to be able to just display the information there, so it's read-only. If you wanted this text area to show up after something happens, you could start it off as hidden and then use the code later to make it pop up. So that's when hidden comes in. And then the last thing, if you've been looking at it, is depth. That kind of just puts like a little shadow edge in it. It's more of a, I mean, you can do what you need to, but it's not something you have to play with to start out. All right, so this is the first 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, we have created a screen. We've named that screen something meaningful. And we have dragged in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different elements. And we've named each of those elements something meaningful. So let's go up at the top and just review what we have. So we have name label and name input. We have age label and choose age. We have an image. Oh, I didn't change that one. So this could just be start page image, right? If it's something that the user is selecting, or something that's going to be output, you could call it the output image if that helps you. But this is just going to be a static lightning bolt on my start page to help it have some pop. So the next one, text area 2. Oh, I didn't change that either. So we're going to call that text output so that I know that that's where the text is going to pop up after they do something. And the last one is the next button. And that's start page next. And again, we called this start page next because if we add more screens, we might have a few next buttons showing up over here. We might have a few back buttons showing up over here. So we want to make sure we're choosing the right back button and next button when we're coding. Otherwise, things can get real tangled real quick. All right, that's all I have for designing the app. In the next one, we're going to code the app.